about and we've hand-picked some important questions from this chapter that can be expected this year. So water resources is that important chapter that is always in news. We need to conserve water. We need to be aware of how you're supposed to use or conserve the water. So yes, a very basic yet a very important chapter from geography. So a lot of map work is to be done here. So the very first question that we tend to ignore is like, out of those 5-mark questions, yes, you have a question from history, you have a question from geography also. So map plays a very important role. So in geography, we are going to talk a lot about map exercise, cover a lot of maps so that it becomes pretty easy for you guys to understand the very basic concept of how to go around when it comes to map. So this is a map of India, and you've asked to, on this political map, you will be asked to show the following multi-purpose projects or dams. The very first they've asked for here is Tungabhadra, then they've asked for Hirakund, and then they have asked for Tehri Dam. So when a question, map-based question comes, the general practice that CBSE has been following is a lot of time the map-based questions are being repeated. So they tend to repeat the questions. So whatever map questions we are attempting here and the way we are going around, it's very important for you guys to understand how to attempt. Most of you, what people generally do is, students are found to do is, for example, if to mark the Hirakund Dam, they'll just pick up the state of Odisha right here and then they'll write, okay, I have Hirakund Dam right here, and in this scenario, this is the worst case scenario that you guys can expect, and you won't be allotted marks for this sort of exercise. Now, what is the proper way to go around when it comes to a map based question? So the very first thing is, suppose you have this as your map page, and here you're going to write, okay, you are attempting, let's say, question number 27. In question number 27, for example, there are 2 parts. So first you're going to talk about Hirakund. So did you observe that yes, I have drawn the river Mahanadi. Over the river Mahanadi, I have drawn and clearly marked this area right here and then unmarked it as Hirakund Dam. The second dam that they were expecting us to talk about is the Tungabhadra. Let's check what was the second dam that they were asking. The second question was about the Tungabhadra Dam. Now, how do we go around when we have to mark the Tungabhadra Dam? Here you go. It's right in this state of Karnataka. You have this Tungabhadra. Okay, so here you have the Tungabhadra Dam. The other name for this dam, for your information, this dam is there on the tributary of river Krishna, that is Tungabhadra. It is also known as Pampa Sagar Dam, but that's not given in your book. It is there on Tungabhadra river itself in the state of Karnataka. So if you're not drawing the map or the river, please ensure that you position a point which you want to refer when it comes to map. Similarly, you've been asked to mark the Tehri Dam. Of course, you have the Tehri Dam in Uttarakhand, but taking the entire state into consideration when it comes to map won't help you score marks. You have to pinpoint the exact location that yes, this is the Tehri Dam and I have marked it this way. So either you can go around like this, or what you can do is you can opt a particular symbol. For example, let's say you opt for a triangle like this, this and this, and you draw the index table where you say yes, these are all the dams that I have marked. Or if there are some sort of ors that have been asked, you can use another symbol and ensure that different symbols are used to answer different questions, right? So this is how you are supposed to go around when it comes to map exercise. So on that note, let's cover another map. Let's talk about the multi-purpose projects. Let's say we want to talk about Salal Dam and Koyna Dam. Like we covered Tungabhadra, Hirakund Dam and Tehri Dam. These are the other 2 important dams that we have to cover. For example, let's talk about Salal Dam. So what I've done here is, in case of Salal Dam, I did not cover the entire state of Jammu and Kashmir and randomly marked its location. I've clearly set a position where Chenab River flows, and then if not drawing the river Chenab, you can just position that point like it's this area that's popular for Salal Dam, where we have the Salal Dam, and Chenab in Jammu and Kashmir. So you can probably write Salal Dam, then you can put in Chenab river, and then it's the state of Jammu and Kashmir. Similarly, the second question that they asked for in this case was to locate Koyna Dam. Yes, Koyna is the dam on Koyna river itself that is there in the state of Maharashtra, and it's of course the tributary of river Krishna. So we have here the exact location of Koyna Dam. So yes, Koyna Dam is on Koyna river, that is further the tributary of river Krishna in the state of Maharashtra. So rather than putting a line across the entire state, I have clearly marked that this is the exact precise location, and this is how you are supposed to go around when you are asked to locate something. You have to be very precise. If you guys are not able to remember the stuff when it comes to dams, please take a fresh map and in your hand. Try to locate all the important position, and if it's very difficult for you to retain, you can memorize it in the form by connecting the dots. That way it becomes very easy. And one expected question that you can this year expect is of course always going to be from history, chapter 3, nationalism in India, where they can ask you about the Congress session as to which session took place at which place. Jumping on to the next question, why is the need for water increasing day by day? Explain 3 reasons. Of course, water is a very scarce resource. You have to make it, and we are utilizing this resource. We're not channelizing the insufficient amount of water that we would, or the crisis that we people would be facing in the coming days. So of course, because the population is increasing, so there not only drinking needs is related to water, but also the day-to-day activity that they associate with is also related with the water requirement. So not only for domestic production, but also to feed that increasing population, you need water as a resource. To increase the food production for irrigation facilities. So if I talk about this point, I have clearly mentioned it is increasing because we have an increasing population. So first case we are going to talk about in first point is the increased population. In second point, I'm going to highlight the intensive industrialization, and the third point I am going to talk about urbanization. So before you jump onto the points and talk about the increasing population, then the food pressure, then the irrigation facilities, then the divide between rich and the poor farmers, like the rich farmers get easy access to irrigation facilities, whereas the poor farmers have to struggle a lot. So this in turn has created a lot of stress further on the water table, because every now and then they've been exploiting the water table and the level has gone dramatically, it has reduced to the next level. Second point I'm going to talk about is intensive industrialization. So of course, because the industries are coming, the multinational companies are taking position in India. There's a lot of new services that these people are offering. So of course, because of that multiplication of urban centers, the people coming there, the migration, the change in lifestyle, all that has added enough stress on the water level, on the water table, on the scarcity of water. So here I have talked about the industries, and in this point you have to talk about, for example, I mentioned it clearly that you have to talk about urbanization. So yes, if you are living in the urban area, your housing, the city area, the groundwater, you need your own groundwater pumping devices so that you can meet your day-to-day needs, and this in return is the called as over exploitation of water, because this is anyway going to deplete the water table to the next point. It's going down and down. So of course we have 3 basic cause of concern, like we discussed it and explained it. So the very first cause when it comes to decrease in the water demand, increase in the water demand is, first you're going to talk about the increasing population pressure, where you're going to put the points. For example, the increase in food production, the divide between rich and poor farmers disturbing the water table. Then you're going to talk about industrialization, that is the growing companies, the heavy industries, power plants that are looking for water as a resource and utilizing the fresh water and not even treating the effluents properly. Then you're going to talk about the cities, the urbanization. Wow, the lifestyle is actually distorting the water table. Okay, so on that note, let's jump on to the next question. Why are different water harvesting systems considered a viable alternative in a country? So we have a lot of water harvesting systems. Different areas have a different they opt for different choices when it comes to water harvesting. Anyway, in India we do not have a uniform distribution of water. The monsoon is quite erratic. We can't depend on the water table everywhere. So yes, even in the state like Meghalaya that has the maximum rainfall, there is a time when they face acute water shortage, and there we use bamboo sticks to conserve or to harvest the water. So like I told you, we have, it's not, this concept is not very new. So you'll put the introduction, right? The water harvesting techniques, they're not very new to the country. They've been followed since ages. So from very back date time, we have all the hydraulic structures that existed where we used to store water, we used to conserve water to serve our needs in the future. So we sort of had, very first point is the sophisticated hydraulic structures. The second is people use different techniques to utilize the rainwater. Either they try to recharge the groundwater table, either they try to protect it, conserve it in different forms. For example, rainwater people actually have in-depth knowledge about what is the rainfall regime, what are the soil types, and therefore they have opted for different options in different areas. For example, if I talk about Himalayan regions, there they use different types of division or divergent channels known as gulls or kulls, because it's like a divergent channel where you utilize the water as and when required. So that is the case. So it's all on the local needs and practices that they look for. For example, I just discussed in hilly and mountainous regions, we have divergent channels that's known as gulls and kull. But before you kickstart with these examples, it's very important to make a note that yes, because we have diverse topography, diverse soil types, so there are different ways in which the local people conserve the water. So the very first example in this case, the different practices is going to be gulls or kulls. Please make a different point in this case. A part is gulls or kulls of Western Himalayas. Second is a state like Tamil Nadu has been practicing rainwater harvesting, rooftop rainwater harvesting, and that has also been practiced in Rajasthan to store the drinking water. So the third example is people of West Bengal. They have their channels, divergent channels, to get hold of or divert the flood water so that they could probably irrigate their field. Fourth point is, if I talk about arid regions or semi-arid regions, it's basically those areas, the agricultural lands, they are converted into the storage structures. For example, I would say in Jaisalmer, we've been following the soil like khadins in Jaisalmer. The structure has been used, and johads have been used in other parts of Rajasthan. These are the traditional practices that the people have been following over the years to ensure that they get adequate supply of water when they need it. Jumping on to the next question, how have intensive means a lot. When there's a lot of load, you call it intensive. So how have intensive industrialization? So there are two components if you read carefully. First is how have intensive industrialization, and second is urbanization posed a great pressure on existing fresh water resources in India, explained with examples of each. So you have to address two cases and you have to quote examples for each one of them. So let's look what the answer is supposed to be. Intensive means to a much bigger scale. For example, the large scale industrialization and I would say urbanization has, posed a great pressure on the existing resources of water, because many of the companies, the big companies especially, the thought that should strike your mind is the multinational companies who are setting their position or their base in India, they consume a lot of water and they discharge a lot of effluent. So in any way that is exerting a great pressure, because not only they are consuming, but yes, they are also exerting or throwing out waste or effluents, discharging wastewater that is not treated the right way. Second important point that you can mention here is there is hydroelectricity that of the total electricity contribution. If we talk about urbanization, of course needs a lot of hydroelectric power. So when you have an hydroelectric station that basically serves to the energy need of the country, and especially when it comes to hydroelectricity, it just shares we just have 22% of it out of the total energy share that India has. So the industrial units, they not only have pose a threat on the availability of the water, but also it is that they they've been utilizing the energies also, the energy resource also, to the extent that the urban people at times they have to face acute shortage of this electricity. So what happens is both of these factors, they go hand in hand when we talk about exerting pressure on the existing water resources. Similarly, our modern lifestyle of the urban people, like we are looking for water in many ways. We need a lot of services, we have to cover up a lot of services, and our consumption need for water is increasing with every day. Like there's a complete change in our reversal in our lifestyle, our pattern. So because we are urbanizing, we are growing, we are following a different trend. So of course that is again posing a great threat on the availability of water. What happens is it's not just the population which requires, but also I would say it's the overexploitation that leads to the depletion of the groundwater table. For example, if there's a housing community, because of the urbanization, anyway they're going to overexploit the water resource that is provided to them, and that in turn creates a pressure. These points might not strike you when you're writing an exam, but since we are discussing here and the visual aid is going to help you retain the stuff for long. For example, the very first point that we talked about is large scale industrialization, exerting pressure on freshwater resources, discharging waste. So it's like consuming and discharging. Second, change in your lifestyle. Third, posing a great pressure by constructing hydroelectric projects, contributing to the bad quality of water by growing numbers of when it comes to urban centers, when it comes to the population pressure that is really reaching the next level. Similarly, I have the housing colonies, that's also because of urbanization creating a lot of pressure. Thus I would say the fresh water, the concluding line, the fresh water needs to be protected from industrial pollution and also the waste that is discharged from the cities. So these are the important points that you need to cover when it comes to urbanization, when it comes to industrialization that is exerting pressure on the water resources. On that note, let's get started with the next question. Water is a very important and critical resource in India. Support this statement by explaining in 3 points. Okay. Yes, it's not in India, but in any country, water is a very important and critical resource. So the answer to this is, see, water of course is a precondition. You can't survive without water. in India when I talk about explicitly. So here you're going to underline in this question, we are looking for important critical reasons. So the precondition, then erratic monsoons, we are not very sure about the monsoon rainfall. We need water not only for domestic consumption. I'm going to give you 5 pointers so that if the question comes up for 3 marks and you've not written 80 words, you're going to lose marks on that. And if it is for 5 marks and you've not answered in at least 120 words, you're going to lose marks. So in long-term questions, I really suggest you guys to first kickstart your answer with a very good introduction. Then you can jump onto the body part and finally move on to the conclusion. So by this I mean, yes, let's getting back to the topic. Important and critical resource, I have to read it again, then think about it. So the very first point that I talked about is precondition to life. Second point is I can't depend on monsoons. Third, it is not only that it serves the domestic consumption, but may it be agriculture, may it be your industries, may it be navigation. A lot of recreational activities are also being supported by water or maybe by rivers. Next, the growing, like we just discussed the question. Now this would not have come across your mind had you not seen the video. It's like you are picking up a point from the question that we just covered right away. The changing lifestyle, the growing urbanization, and the pressure exerted by the cities through the municipal sewerage or maybe the industries by throwing out the effluents are in a way distorting the water table. Yet it is a very critical reason when it comes to how important water is in India. Alright, so on that note, let's jump on to the next question, that is answer the following questions in 120 words. That means this question is approximately, you can expect this question under 5 marks. So we have different sections and you're going to attend those sections accordingly. So the very first part is discuss how rainwater harvesting in semi-arid regions of Rajasthan is carried out. I'm again reading the question for you. Discuss how rainwater harvesting in semi-arid regions of Rajasthan is carried out. And the second important question for this part is describe how modern adaptations of traditional rainwater harvesting methods are being carried out to conserve and store water. So in this part they want you to talk about Rajasthan, whereas in this part they want to talk about the modern adaptations that we are coming out with in order to work on rainwater harvesting. Yes, I am talking about that Jaisalmer component that we just talked about. So in semi-arid regions of Rajasthan, see every town, I'll tell you what the context is all about. So you have to make a note that you underline these underground tanks and you're talking about Rajasthan. So in Rajasthan, what they do have is they have their underground tanks. So there is a pipe that comes all the way down from the roof and the water is stored in a room down, underground room. So these rooms where the water is stored, it's like there's a cooling effect that is provided to the rooms, adjacent rooms. So what happens is these tanks, the storage area, they're very large, they're very deep and built inside the main house. So it's not only serving the need of water, but I would also say that it provides the area a lot of cooling effect. So they're linked to all the, this area is linked to all, like I've written here, to the sloping roofs of the house through which a pipe is there and all the water is collected and then stored in the underground tank through a pipeline. And this is how we work in semi-arid regions of Rajasthan. So after this, the rainwater is collected, as I told you, in the tanks. It can be used for drinking. When the other resources of course have dried out, you can answer that yes, they can again be used, they can be put to use. It can also be beneficial to create a very pleasant effect, like beneficial to beat the heat because they keep the rooms really cool. So yes, here you again have to make sure that the teacher reads this and underline it. The rainwater is also known as Palar Pani. That's the common name. It's like sweet water. In Rajasthan it's known as sweet water. So yes, it is the purest form of water. It is considered as the purest form of natural water. Jumping on to the second part, the question was modern adaptations of traditional rainwater harvesting. How do we opt for modern methods? So the very first is, when I talk about modern methods, so we are working on cost saving, a low cost technique that helps us recharge the groundwater table and also harvest the rainwater. Why? How we are doing it? For example, the very first important point, and this part is really very important. Let me make a note. For example, we are trying to construct the percolation ponds. Now, what is percolate? When you infiltrate the water down below, that is known as percolating. So you are working on the groundwater table. You are collecting water at rooftop. The state of Tamil Nadu has made it compulsory. You know, the only state that has made rainwater rooftop rainwater harvesting compulsory is Tamil Nadu. So the collection of roof water and storing it as an alternative source which can help cover the energy needs. Then you are using refilling the digging wells to refill them, and then you are constructing the percolation ponds that would in return help recharge the groundwater table. So when I come to underground tanks or tankas, yes, rainwater is being practiced in Shillong and Meghalaya, the rainwater harvesting. And when I talk about bamboo cultivation, the modern one of the other example is bamboo drip irrigation that is being followed in the state of Meghalaya. So what happens is the water is collected by connecting all the bamboo pipes together, though the quantity is very less at the very end of the bamboo stick, but still they try to conserve the water and come up with the flow with the enough quantity of water that can fulfill their needs when there is not enough quantity of water. Jumping on to the next question. Now these set of questions, since they've clearly answered that you have to answer the mark that you have to answer them in 30 words, that means you can probably expect each one of them in around 1 word or in 1 mark or so. The very first is explain how water becomes a renewable resource. Okay, so they're very easy because there is a complete water cycle. So there's a very good hydrological cycle. So the fresh water is obtained from the groundwater or maybe from the surface runoff that you're going to mention, and also underline, like it's like hydrological cycle that makes water a renewable resource. You've put your point right across the table. But where do you get fresh water? Either you get it from groundwater, please underline, or surface runoff. Now where do they in return get water? It's through that entire hydrological cycle. So you've answered this part rather than writing this and coming up where the tendency is where we when we get short of time, or maybe we're very eager to answer the question, we would write away. We would just write that yes, there is a hydrological cycle associated with it, and tend to skip this part that is groundwater or surface runoff. So these two facilities are in return renewed by the hydrological cycle. Is it clear? Okay, so jumping on to the next part, the very next question is, what is water scarcity? There's a Swedish expert who has explained that what is defined by water scarcity and what are its main causes. So you have to make a note that you mention about that person. So it's a situation basically, let me put it across. So water scarcity is a situation when there is shortage of water, the minimum requirement is not fulfilled. That is when the water availability is less than 1000 meter cube per person per day. And this has been rightly mentioned by, please underline that you're going to write about this Swedish expert, that water scarcity occurs when water availability is less than 1000 meter cube per person per day. So this is defined as water scarcity. So you have to clearly mention it that it is being said or defined by the Swedish expert is what they are looking for. It is clearly marked in your book and you have to make a note of the same point in the answer as well. Jumping on to the part compared, okay, what is water scarcity and what are its main causes? Of course, you know about the main causes. It's because of the amount of rainfall that you get. It's because of the population size that there is going. It's because of the unequal distribution of water when it comes to rainfall, monsoon, and even, you know, unequal access, like different social groups. They do not share the water. There's not equitable distribution of water. So yes, all these factors, they cause water scarcity in the country. I know this is very easy to answer, like 4 points, because why I have mentioned, because there's an and clause in this case, and you can clearly see in this case I've answered the first section, then I've given a pause, and then I've highlighted which answer I'm going to put, which part I'm going to attend, and then I've put across these points. This is how you guys are going to present the answer. If you're going to khichidify this all context, please don't expect that the teacher is going to give you, allot you marks for the same. You're going to lose it anyway. Jumping on to the C part, compare the advantages. Oh, this is a very, very important question. So they've asked to compare the advantages and disadvantages of multi-purpose river projects. Don't mug up facts, try to understand them, and before you attempt, segregate the points that are associated with advantages and segregate the points that are associated with disadvantages. So let's look. What is it? When I talk about advantages, that means I'm exclusively going to talk about the advantages. Now what guys you can mention in this is, if you have a very big multi-power project, that automatically means, when I talk about a multi-purpose project, that means it's serving multiple needs. It may be irrigation, it may be electricity, it may be controlling the floods, it may be used for industrial use, navigation, recreational activities, fish breeding, or maybe just enhancing the beauty of that area, right? So these are the advantages. But when I want to talk about the disadvantages, yes, there is, you know, excessive, sediments get collected. The energy generation also, you know, decreases during the drought period because you do not have enough supply of water. The water gets polluted because of that, because we have to store water for electricity production. We have to throw water from quite some height, so that contamination that creates a lot of polluted water, that makes the water get polluted. Then you have the large, because we have to construct those big projects, the multi-purpose projects. So yes, it leads to large scale displacement of the people. Like if the water table is not up to the minimum level, anyway you're not going to get electricity, and you're not going to, it'll not be helpful for you even for the navigation purpose. What happens when you're storing the water? The sediments, they tend to deposit at the bottom, and that when the concrete part that sort of deposits at the bottom, it affects the marine ecosystem, the marine or maybe the aquatic species at that time, they get affected. And also there is submergence of, because all the sediments get collected in that particular area, so whatever natural vegetation you have, whatever soil you have, it gets off, it renders useless, it gets useless. And this is how all those multi-purpose projects, they are not even controlling floods, but at times they aggravate the issue. They are the main cause of flooding. So I have the points that I just talked about, it's written right here and explained carefully. So the point is, when you listen to something, it's like you are able to memorize it, and when you read it, it becomes at times difficult to retain. So yes, please try to memorize as many points as you can, and then you can fix and match in accordingly as per the requirement of the question. So on that note, let's get started with the next one. Which of the following statements is not an argument in favor of multi-purpose river projects? So you have 4 statements. The very first statement, let's go step by step. The very first statement is multi-purpose projects bring water to those areas which suffer from water scarcity. Now, before I answer this question, I have to make a note that which is not an argument in favor of. Alright, so not an argument in favor of. Second point is multi-purpose projects by regulating water flow help to control floods. Okay. Third is multi-purpose project lead to large-scale displacement and loss of livelihood. And last is multi-purpose project generate electricity for our industries and homes. So guys, what do you think is the answer to this question? Let me give you a minute to think over what is the correct option. Okay, yes, the right option is, which is not in favor, is not going against the multi-purpose project is, or speaking against the multi-purpose project. What I get from the statement is that multi-purpose projects lead to large. So this is at this, you don't argue, you're arguing against when you construct the multi-purpose project, that does not go in its favor. So that is what they are asking you to segregate out of these given set of points. Okay guys, so on that note, I'm going to end the discussion right here. The PDF link to this set of question is provided in there on our app. You can download the app from the link provided in the description box. When you download the app, it's not about you're not going to only have the PDF, but you can also get access of the study material, and you can also watch other videos and ask your doubts. So until we meet next, thank you so much for joining this session. I expect you guys to join us for the upcoming sessions also. Till then, take care. Thank you so much for joining. Stay healthy. Bye bye.